You're listening to Supervision with a Vision, where we discuss all things supervision. I'm your host, Sarah, professional counselor, marriage and family therapist, play therapist, eating disorder specialist, and cookie lover, with my co-host, Heather, marriage and family therapist, certified Together in Texas counselor, a Texas transplant from California, and outdoor adventurer. Hi, welcome to Supervision with a Vision. Today, Heather and I are talking about passive aggressiveness. This week, we read 21 Questions to Spot a Passive Aggressive Person, published in Psychology Today, 2023. That was a lot of P's.
It was.
Tongue twister. A little hard to say. The first point the article made is that passive aggressiveness induces criticism.
Sure. As a former passive aggressive communicator, is that okay? I would say my default in my younger years was to be pretty passive aggressive.
Okay.
But I think it does induce criticism, and maybe to the point of, like, I think passive aggressiveness happens when someone wants to be critical, but also doesn't want to be blunt.
Okay, I was going to say, if you have a lot of practice, could you give us an example? What's something that's passive?
Gosh,
that's kind of hard to put you. Yeah, kind of hard to put you on the spot. Like, we were just talking about smells in the office, good, bad, and otherwise.
Right.
So, what if you said, "Oh, that smells great"? Is that passive aggressive?
Maybe not quite, but maybe on the borderline.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be something more like, "Wow, what's happening in here?" Like a little more.
Okay.
Just, I don't know. I think passive aggressive needs to be a little bit more like the criticism part needs to come through a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
what if you said, "Oh, you really like that scent"?
Right. There you go. Perfect. Yep. That's a really good
so critical, because it implies that it is not a good scent.
Way too much. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's an example. I think also passive aggressiveness, because the whole point is that it's saying a criticism with not just
without saying it.
Right, without saying it. So it could be about something you smell. It could be, I mean, we're talking about also into like, or like someone's talking to you. It could happen in supervision, I guess, right?
That's what I was going to ask you next, is I'm trying to think of how this impacts supervision and counseling. If I'm counseling, if my client at the time is younger,
right,
they're so confused by this that whatever feedback I'm giving, and if I'm giving it in a really passive aggressive way, it might go over their head.
Right. They may not get the point.
Right. So if I said, maybe it is like a preteen or a young teenager, and the smell that I'm commenting on is body odor.
Right.
Oh, that's a smell.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're going to understand my meaning.
No, they're not.
So then they won't be able to respond or address it because they don't understand my meaning.
Right.
So could that happen in supervision? That the supervisee misses your meaning?
I think it could happen. I was actually thinking of a group supervision I was in one time, and someone, I wasn't leading it, I was just part of it. And someone, after they presented kind of a case, like, "Hey, I have some questions about this," and they did everything, and then someone like smacked their hand down on the table, and they're like, "Yeah, you did all the wrong things." And like there was no like after, like it was like, "Yeah, you did all the wrong things." I mean, it was very like to the point,
very, very direct,
right? But also it was like nothing else said. Like it was like, "Oh, you did everything wrong," and then dropped.
So well, then that's not effective feedback either,
right?
Trying to think, what would it? I don't think, well, I guess maybe this is passive aggressive. Okay. How old would I have been? I think this must have been my 8th grade year. So I would have been like 13, 14. My science teacher, I don't know that I'd had very many male teachers to that point.
Makes sense. Yeah. Maybe middle school is.
Yeah. I think I had one before that, but so that was kind of unique. Science teacher. And I was definitely chatty Cathy all the way through school.
Okay.
The feedback from every single teacher probably would have been that I was a talker. And this class, I was talking. There were people in that class that I knew that were my friends. And he would often tell me to stop talking, but would smile.
Like body language didn't match the message.
So, or even like say it in a joking way.
Right.
And I was missing it. I kept missing the point. So one time even, and I don't know what I did that time that was more than usual, or maybe he was just already frustrated. He sent me to the hallway.
Okay.
And while I was a talker, I was also a good kid that followed the rules.
Right. So this is a big deal.
Right. So I went like, whoa, in the hallway? Really? Me? So I go stand in the hallway. And even then I thought, partly because I'm not a kid that went to the hall very often, but also because the way he said it was confusing. I got to the hallway and I remember thinking, well, what do I do here?
Right.
Did he mean stand here?
Right. What
did he mean go to the office?
Right.
I mean, what do I do? Right. And luckily it didn't take too much long. I'm still standing there asking myself that. And he came out to talk to me.
Right.
And he's smiling.
And you're like,
and he's joking and he's kind of sing-songy with his voice. And I'm still thinking, how serious is this?
Right. Am I in trouble? Am I not in trouble?
Yeah. And I actually said that back to him. So I don't remember what he said to me, but I remember that I said, I don't know what you're trying to tell me to do.
Right.
Am I in trouble? And
you had to like clarify.
Be really clear.
Sarah, no more talking.
Right. That I felt like that was like the way he was saying it or doing it was kind of passive aggressive. Right. It was confusing. Imagine, it does, my example of saying how many kids miss our meaning, that if I hadn't been the kind of kid that would ask directly, I still would have been confused about, I don't know what he means right now. Right. Is he teasing with me? Or are we being funny? Right. Or is he pretty upset? I don't know.
I just thought of something as you were talking. A long, long time ago, well before my counseling career, I worked at this point in time, I was at a private school teaching kindergarten. And we had to have parent conferences. And you're supposed to give, there was like a format, you had to say like 3 positives and 1 negative or some, I don't know, some rule. Yeah. And I'm sitting with the parents of a student that I really did adore. I mean, she's a good kid. And I said something about her being a social butterfly. And I meant it in a good way. She was a good friend. This is kindergarten. Yeah. She's a good friend. She talks to everyone. Yeah. And the dad's face just went blank.
Oh.
And that was not a good comment to say. That was obviously a negative.
Oh.
And I did not mean anything by how it was taken. But later on, when I had direction from my administrator, he told me that saying things like social butterfly in the construct of giving feedback would be considered passive aggressive.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, well, I wasn't meaning it negative at all. Like I wasn't covering, if I thought she talked too much, I would have said, we're really working on when to talk and when not to talk. Like I would have just addressed it like that.
Right.
But
so being vague or unclear leaves you open to criticism that doesn't feel good,
right?
Or you don't know what it means or what to do with it. So with a supervisee, do you think you've ever had that reaction? I feel like early on, I was careful or nervous to give very direct feedback,
right?
And so maybe I did more of this at some point.
Maybe. I can't think right now of any like current situational stuff, but I think at the very beginning, when you're first getting your feet wet and learning how to like redirect something or like, I think I had to be very careful about not being too.
Yeah. Like, what about as a supervisee? Do you ever feel like you had a supervisor that the feedback they gave, not intentionally maybe, was passive aggressive and then felt critical or unclear? I think to me that feeling is the feel critical keeps me from continuing to engage.
That's what I was just going to say. It's a stopping point.
Right. If it feels like they were passive aggressive and I felt really criticized, I kind of quit trying to engage as much.
I had a supervisor one time at my early years I was still in school actually. And he gave me feedback that I still would tell you to this day is wrong. Like we just did not see eye to eye. Yeah. I was like, I am an expert in little children and you are not. I don't care what your degree is. I've worked with kids like my entire career. And he gave me feedback about something and he was just critical and constantly critical. And so I had to have meetings with him that were supposed to be an hour every week, that by the company standard, not by anything else.
Yeah.
And I would get in and get out, and like 22 minutes was my shortest ever.
Yeah.
Like, it was a thing amongst colleagues.
Huh.
Oh, well, he's only meeting with Heather. She'll be out in 20 minutes. Like, it was like because I literally just wouldn't say anything else. He would become critical, and I was like, oh, we're going to argue about this. I don't feel like arguing today. And I would just like, okay.
I can, like the way that you just said that.
Yeah.
I picture your kids doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
All three of them, or which ones?
Let's see. Definitely my oldest, and a little bit my youngest, not my middle kiddo.
Yeah.
But the personalities on either end.
Right, right. I can, like, and I see how this is going, so.
Right, so never mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. I'm trying to think if I ever had a supervisor that was passive aggressive. I feel like I had some supervisors with other faults, but maybe not as much passive aggressiveness. With me.
Right. Maybe they were with it. Yeah. Right.
They were, I feel like they were either aggressive or direct.
Right.
And direct in a caring way. But let me think if I feel like I had a boss, someone who managed me that was passive aggressive and then confusing.
You know, and
because I didn't know what to
Yeah, you're like, what is that? And what rule am I following? I actually had a colleague one time say, well, that was passive aggressive about another club. Like, not, we weren't engaging with something. I said, well, this or this. Well, that's passive aggressive. I'm not going to be passive aggressive. And I was like, I don't know if that's passive aggressive. I just think mine's softer than yours. Like, I'm making it sound pretty. I wasn't trying to be, yes, we need to address this with this other person.
Yeah, sure.
But,
well, let's talk about that. The next point is that passive aggressiveness allows for avoidance or ignoring. And so if we're, tagging on to what you're saying, that passive aggressiveness includes criticism, allows people to avoid or ignore. But if you're being gentle in your feedback, you're not ignoring or avoiding.
Right.
But it can be soft.
Right.
So what's an example of that? Not passive aggressive, but still feedback that is direct, not avoiding, but gentle.
Right. It could be something like walking to the office and having like something that smells strong. Maybe it's perfume, maybe it's something there. And of course, looking at the situation, right? Is there something that can be done about it or not? Because if you have to be directive, there needs to be an answer. And so maybe walking in and saying, oh, wow, hey, I have a client coming in next and they are super sensitive. Can we turn down the air freshener? Can we, something like that is directive with cause and reason, like that's soft. Not walking in and going, oh, wow, that's a strong smell,
Okay. So then you're saying direct, non-critical feedback that's gentle takes the person who you're giving feedback to into consideration.
Right.
So I'm trying to think of a time where I had to give like really tough feedback and maybe I thought to make some adjustments. Oh, I can think of one. Actually, this is a supervisee who's now long gone, but they actually sent me a message today.
Oh, well.
And when I worked with them, they were having a hard time. They had a lot of stuff going on in their life that made things difficult. And the feedback that I gave this person at one point was, you need to take better care of yourself in order to do your job well. And the way that I did that was, one, I didn't say that with anyone else around. We met in a situation, in a place, in a time that would be most comfortable to them. It still wasn't totally comfortable, but we met in their office. We met when no one else was around. We met when I knew that they weren't trying to rush to something else. And I even started to say it just now, even in the way that I introduced that, what I said that they needed to do something to take care of themselves. So I didn't say, ooh, you're looking rough.
Right. What happened here?
You look not good. I don't know what you did last night, but don't do that again.
Somebody didn't sleep well.
Right. So I didn't say that, but instead I went, hey, I need you to take better care of yourself. What can you do to take better care? Like talk to me about things that you can commit to doing that will help you.
Right.
So I was pretty direct, but also thought about how I could say that and deliver the message in a way that would be focused on how they would take it or how that,
Right. I think in all those things, like even the very beginning when we're talking about our examples, it's like, yeah, avoidance. Part of it, I think people do passive aggressive interactions when they're conflict avoidant.
Yes.
They don't want to bring that to the surface. They don't want that. And so it's like, okay, they're either going to be passive aggressive and say a snarky remark and then just not engage. Like, just like, did that bomb. Now I can leave.
Yeah.
You know,
it is. I mean, think about the flip side. If you're trying to give clear feedback, be direct, not avoid, that does not mean the other person wants all of those things.
Right. Exactly.
The other person might be trying to wiggle out of it. So the person I'm talking about, she didn't try and wiggle out of it. I mean, she could have. If she was trying to wiggle out of it, she would have said, I have to go to the bathroom. I have to lead a group right now. I have to go.
I'm not feeling well. I got to leave.
Right.
No.
She could have made some excuse to get out of that room. She could have laughed off what I was saying or kind of blown it off.
Oh, I'm fine. Sarah, I'm fine. I'm really fine.
Right. Or like even just come up with things that she could do to take care of herself that were kind of fluffy or non-important.
Right.
And I think that could happen a lot.
Yeah, easy.
That you're trying to give feedback and that person's kind of trying to wiggle their way out of that situation. So that makes it hard that you might even be really focused on being not passive aggressive and not being critical or avoiding, but the other person might not make it easy.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Okay. Our last point in our article is that passive aggressiveness sabotages.
Right. And I think that is a defining difference, right? When we look at those kind of behaviors, it's like passive aggressiveness that we've been talking about so far, it's definitely passive and maybe a little bit aggressive in nature if we got to give hard feedback but I think the sabotage factor is so interesting.
To me, when I'm thinking about how passive aggressiveness sabotages, it's if you're giving feedback in the way that we just talked about.
Right.
Not critical, direct, trying to help, then you are improving your relationship with that
you're
person.
Strengthening those kind of communication styles.
If you're giving feedback that's critical, avoiding, not direct, unclear, then you're sabotaging your relationship with that person.
You're putting up tall fences instead of making.
So it's not going to get better, but that kind of continued
And I think there's even, of course, this is me saying this, but everything's on a scale, right? There's like severe passive aggressive and then just some little quip marks in between. But like if you're really, really passive aggressive, you could be doing it intentional.
Oh, sure. I like the idea that it's a spectrum, that it's not like painting with one color.
Right.
That all supervisors have bad days too.
Of course.
So you could walk into the office and be having kind of a cruddy day and you make kind of a quick offhand comment that comes off as passive aggressive.
Right.
But that doesn't mean all is lost.
Right. It just means that you got to reset.
Right. So you could come back and address it in a different way.
Or just say, like sometimes if I hear myself say something, I don't know, I can't think of a supervision example right now, but recently I've heard myself say something out loud and then go, oh, that probably sounded like this, what I was intending, and like have to correct. So making it, if you've said something and you're like, oh, that went totally awry.
Yeah.
If you're aware of it, to come back and say, hey, I'm going to make these amends now before we go any further in our conversation.
Yeah. So in all the examples we've given, that the person who wasn't being clear in their feedback could realize that maybe because the reaction they get from the person, or they think back about it and go, I did not get the reaction I was hoping. My teacher, I'm sure I kept talking.
You're like, I'm sure I went back in. Kept talking.
Yeah, if not that day, I continued on later. Could have thought, what I'm doing is not getting my point across. You can readjust.
Yes.
And certainly you can do that in supervision, that if you realize, I realize I was passive aggressive, or I realize that way of giving feedback was just not effective, that you can realize that, adjust, and try a different way.
And I think sometimes you won't know until, like, I think of early on in a supervisee-supervisor situation, relationship. At the beginning, there's different boundaries with what's acceptable for every relationship. And that can shift from what's acceptable at the very beginning to what is more tolerated further down.
I think that makes me think again about a young client.
Right.
That depending on their developmental level, you make a joke or you're kind of sarcastic, passive aggressive, and it goes over their head.
Yeah, they're like, what?
Right. And you realize you get that confused look from them and you go, oh, yeah, they don't get sarcasm. They're not old enough. That you could adjust to that. Right. So if it's cultural or developmental or just their sense of humor, that you say something and your supervisee looks at you like
they're completely lost.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Then you can go, oh, don't know what that means. Right. So readjust and try to work on communicating in a different, more effective way.
Right.
Okay. I am going to be thinking about the way that I say things and if it sometimes sounds passive aggressive to somebody else.
I'm 100% sure I still fall into this. I can be very sarcastic. It's almost like my humor tends to go sarcasm.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure I'm like, oh, now I need to think about who's around when I act like that.
Yeah. So Heather and I would love to hear about times when passive aggressiveness has impacted your workplace. And as always, we'd love to hear ideas for future episodes. Thanks today for listening to Supervision with a Vision.